Hi there. This week's first chapter Friday book is Black Star by Kwame Alexander. And this is a sequel to his book that came out, the first of a planned trilogy called The Door of No Return. So I chose this book. It's Black History Month, and these are really terrific books for exploring Black history. They are in the historical fiction genre. So the first book starts off in Africa, and it has characters who are stolen from their village and enslaved, and ends on quite a cliffhanger. And so when I started reading this book, I expected it to kind of like pick up where the last book left off, but it doesn't. It skips ahead actually 2 generations to the granddaughter of the characters who are in the first book. But then woven throughout the story is it's kind of like a double history. It's about the history that's happening during this book, and then it weaves in the history from that's like lingering from the first book. So it's got a lot to this story, and I'm going to read you just the beginning of it because it does kind of introduce where this whole thing is at, and I cannot wait for the next book to find out because this one also ends on a cliffhanger. It was a very engaging story. It's a novel in verse, and I think you're really going to like it. So let's read a little bit of Black Star. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Langston Hughes. A note from the author. This is a novel inspired by history, based on the real lives of folks I've read about and imagined. Some famous, others, like I said, made up. There are also people and places here that resemble my family, my heritage. You see, Black history is more than a timeline of firsts and inventions. It's also about the regular families that lived, laughed, loved, danced, worked, failed, hoped, cried, and died, just like everybody else. I wrote this for them, to illustrate their humanity, and to remind us of our responsibility to acknowledge it, to respect it. Also, I love writing about America through the lens of sports, and as the poet Walt Whitman said, baseball is the American game. Enjoy. So I actually forgot to mention this is also a sports story, a baseball story. In this dream, her arm is a cannon, boom, and she a shooting star shining in the night, playing catch with the robin and the blue jay, flying sky high, way up to the heavens. She's something, the angels whisper, looking down at the diamond. There she goes, not far now, rounding third, but she can't remember how she got there. And she always gets lost, can't even see her feet anymore. So she asked her grandfather, who's sitting on a cloud by the fire, smoking a pipe, if he can help her find her way back home. Charlene, time to do your chores. Chapter 1. The Story of the Golden Stool. See, back in the before times, in the old country, your Nana's homeland, the place where the sea touched the sky, it is said that the people could fly. That one night, Oko, one of the founders of Asante Kingdom, flew through the clouds and offered the moon a cluster of starfish. That the night was so grateful in return, she gifted Oko a sacred stool, crafted from the purest gold, adorned with golden bells, to house the soul of the people. That Oko descended from the heavens above, carrying the golden stool on his back, and that he landed at the feet of the first Asante king, Osei Tutu the first, who took the stool as his throne, and that it passed down generation to generation, but it was so sacred that it could only be sat upon by royalty or by those with wings. But we are not kings, and I cannot fly. So are you saying that I must eat my grits and bacon each morning and just stare at it from the kitchen table? That I will have to walk by it each morning on my way out the door to school, but I cannot touch it? That it has been in this house since before I was born, and you are the only one who can sit in it? That does not make sense to be Nana, unless you are saying that you have wings? Nana Kofi. In the mornings, my grandfather comes in, kisses me on both cheeks, checks to make sure his suitcase is still next to the kitchen door, picks up his tea with molasses that I've made for him, then sits on his wooden stool with a star inside a wheel carved on it, reading one of his favorite books until I finish breakfast. Then he stops, starts talking like he's in the middle of telling me a story about his village, about a boy named Ibo, about a girl named Ama, about Red Red, about Bayere, about the before times back when he lived on the other side of the ocean, and memorized Shakespeare and ate spicy foods that he still misses, that Mama refuses to cook because Daddy's stomach gets upset, because they don't have palm oil here, Nana. And whenever I ask him to tell me how he got on this side of the ocean, he gets up, walks to the den, where his serious stories quickly turn into funny tales and trickster spiders that have me sitting on the edge of my seat and falling on the floor laughing. Chui, I've been learning the language Nana used to speak ever since I was a baby, and he taught me how to say yes, yo, and no, dabi. So now I understand him when he forgets to speak English sometimes, or talks Twi in his sleep, or is telling me a story, except when he slips in a word I've never heard before. Bayere? He tells me that it was the name of a big festival each year, celebrating the harvest, that it means yam, that even though he grew sick of having to eat it, he misses the dry sweetness of it, that his mother made plenty of it every day, but she never made enough red red, which was his favorite dish, and he only got one bowl because his brother always ate three. And then he gets quiet, his eyes all glassy, his big wide grin showing off his white teeth like he's laughing to keep from crying. Always. He always falls asleep in his big chair in the middle of his story, in the middle of my questions. What is red red? Why don't you ever talk about your brother? And he always leaves me hanging on the edge of a cliff, waiting for answers I'm not sure I even want to hear. Mama says, Charlene, let your Nana sleep. Why don't you finish your chores? Then I can teach you to play a new tune. But I don't really enjoy the flute as much as she does. So after I finish dusting and mopping and Willie Green shows up hollering all loud through our screen door, holding the old broomstick we used for a bat, even though he sometimes gets on my nerves, I ask her if I can go outside because the only thing I love doing more than listening to Nana Kofi's stories is playing ball. I grab 3 sticks of pink gum, my ball, and the baseball cap my daddy brought me when he came home last month from working up north. I see him 12 times a year and Christmas, on account of he used to be an oyster fisherman around here until all the oysters got fished up. So the government put a stop until they can grow some more. So now he goes up to Baltimore on the first of every month and comes back a few days before the next one. How I learned to like baseball. One summer, my daddy, Raymond Tilton Cuffey, took me on the train with him to Baltimore, and while he worked all day, I stayed with his sister and her sons, and I read these books about a man named Tarzan in Africa that didn't sound anything like Nana's Africa. And every day I kept hearing and seeing how much fun my cousins were having outside, throwing their ball around. So one time I put my book down and asked to join them, and at first they laughed at me. But after I caught the ball with one hand and threw it farther than any of them, while with the other, they let me keep playing, and I liked it. In the evenings, Daddy would mostly be too tired to do anything but eat and fall asleep while listening to me read to him. But every now and then he'd take me outside and teach me everything he knew about baseball, which it turns out was a lot, because way before I was born, he tried out for a team called the Manhattans in Washington, D.C. I learned how to swing, where to hold the ball when I pitch, how to make it twist and twirl in the air, how to play the game. Then the next day I'd show my cousins, and we'd spend all day ripping and running till our clothes were drenched and our bodies were filthy from slipping and sliding, and the summer was as good as it was ever going to be. Then one day it got even better. Surprise. On the day before I was to go back home, my aunt made us wear fresh clothes, said we couldn't get dirtied up because we had to go somewhere. made us stay inside and read and play card games and sit down and grow all fidgety at not being able to go outside and be wild and free. So we fell asleep because we were too tired of being bored, and then Daddy's loud voice woke us up when he came home early from work, told us to get up, that we were going somewhere special. So we did quick because we were sick of being in the house and couldn't wait to find out where somewhere was. And when we got to the park and saw all those people in the bleachers, we about fainted. And when we walked in the park and smelled the freshly cut grass and the popcorn in the air, we licked our lips. And when we sat down on the bleachers to watch an exhibition baseball game, to see the world famous Cyclone Joe Williams of the Lincoln Giants strike at almost everybody on the Baltimore Black Sox team, I no longer liked baseball. I loved it. Proper. I blow Mama a kiss, slap my Black Sox baseball cap on, then run out of the house fast before she can tell me again all her reasons why I should not play ball, that it is not normal, that getting all sweaty is not elegant, that girls should stay clean, be graceful, play piano or flute. Let's ball, Willie Green shouts. Willie Green is my best friend, was born on the same day as me, which he doesn't like to celebrate because it was the same day his mama died. Lives in a house with his granny and his brother Johnny that his daddy built for his mama, with leftover wood from the lumber mill where he works 12 hours a day. Has 6 older brothers and sisters, but they all live in different places, some nearby, others up north, and he says they all boss him around because he's the youngest. Is 7 hours older than me, so he tries to boss me, but it's hard to boss someone when you have to look up at them, and since I'm 3 inches taller, he has to always look up to me. Loves playing ball as much as me, but doesn't think any girl can ever be as good as him. Is always complaining that I throw the ball too fast. Got mad one time and said, real snarky like, "Stop throwing so wild, Charlene." So I placed my 2 fingers and my thumb in just the right position like my daddy showed me, like Cyclone Joe does, and threw it slower, but made it drop down right before he swung so he would miss it. Because my name is not Charlene, it's Charlie. That's slow enough for you, Willie Green? So, uh, even though it doesn't say exactly when this book took place in the book, she references Cyclone Joe Williams playing for the Lincoln Giants, which happened in 1913. So it was around that time that this book takes place. It's during the segregation era in the South. So there's a lot of that history going on. And like I said, it also referenced her grandfather's life. So I think this is a great book to learn about little pieces of Black History for Black History Month. And it's also just a great story. And Kwame Alexander is a fantastic writer, and you should totally pick up this book at our library.